today's ChurchTechCast.com Screencast Show, auto-advancing slides with an MP3 in ProPresenter 5. The ChurchTechCast.com Screencast Show is generously provided for by my latest book. If your church has training problems, meaning you get new volunteers who have no video background whatsoever, Church Video School is for you. 90 short lessons that they can read just in 5-10 minutes a day, and before long they'll know the difference between gin lock and white balance and several other video terms that you just don't pick up in regular conversation. So head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/CVS for Church Video School and pick up your copy today. So, I have known about a feature for a long time in ProPresenter 5, and I've been curious if this might be a big help to, first off, my children's ministry, but secondly, if it wouldn't be a big help to churches all over the world that they don't really have a band, they don't have live music, they have pre-recorded music. I mean, I've been there, I've done that, I've been a part of a church plant that didn't have a band whatsoever, didn't even have someone playing guitar. I guess I could have, but I was also trying to run sound, so I couldn't do two things at once. So, I've been curious if this is possible, and happily, with ProPresenter 5 it is. Now, ProPresenter, I admit, is a little pricey, but for the price of a decent guitar, you can use this and have this set up to auto advance. So this actually might even be, there might be a couple of other ideas that you can do with it just to take your production to the next level. So let's head on over to ProPresenter 5 and we'll take a look. So here we are over in ProPresenter 5, and the first thing I want to do is I want to hide this timeline. Okay, so this is probably how you're used to seeing it with, you've got your navigation over here where you can choose between slides, and then you've got your preview, you've got the different songs, and then below that is your playlist. So we've been working with A Mighty Fortress Is Our God because it's public domain. Martin Luther, having been dead for a few hundred years, doesn't care so much if we use this. He's busy praising the Lord in heaven, so he really is otherwise occupied. So, this is A Mighty Fortress Is Our God. So the first thing that I would do is I would click on, you can't see it here just because the way that I've got the thing organized, but to the right there's a little icon, kind of like this Twitter icon, that says Timeline. And if you don't have that, you can go back up and add in icons to this space up here. But trust me on it, that it's just to the right of this Twitter icon, but off the screen. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see that here it is. Now, a couple of things that you're not seeing here. Here, let me actually scoot this over just so you can see it. Okay. So, we have this audio track, and we're going to need that here in just a second. But there's also this slideshow button, so you could really easily add a timer. So let's say you want to have all the slides auto advance 5 seconds, you can do that. Typically that's not very good for music, so we're going to get rid of that. You can also remove all of them if you've made a mistake. Let's say you add a 4-second timer to all of them. You'll see how they all show up here. Now, you could drag these around and tweak their location, but I really don't think that's the best way to do it, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. So I'm going to click Remove All. Now, you can set this to loop, so if you have more than one song or you put them all, you can just loop them all. That's perfectly fine. So that's one way of doing this. You can set a duration, you can set an offset, etc. But let's go back over here, because this is where the magic happens. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an audio track. So this is A Mighty Fortress Is Our God. Wouldn't it be great if I had an MP3 for A Mighty Fortress Is Our God? So let's click Add New Audio Track. Give this just a second. My computer's been laggy today, so I hope that this isn't annoying to you. I'm actually listening to this through an earbud, and I'm hearing just a little delay, so I hope that this doesn't distract me as I'm doing this. The reason I'm doing that is so that I can hear this as I'm doing this. Now, I happen to know that it's in downloads, which is where I am. And look, I arranged this by date modified, and today I downloaded a Creative Commons rendition of A Mighty Fortress Is Our God on piano. No vocal, just piano. So this would absolutely work for what I have. This might actually work if you're a small church. Let's say you have a single piano player or a single guitarist. You could have them record an MP3 of them playing the worship song, and then you can go in advance and fix this, and then they can take a vacation, spend some time with their family, or go out in the congregation and worship there. So that's another possibility. So anyway, let's create this. I'm going to click Select. And once this does it, you'll see time. Just a moment while we do that. Okay, so it does that, and you see A Mighty Fortress Is Our God.mp3. Now the timeline has times marked in seconds, although I can tweak that so I can fit the entire song within this, or I can make that really long. So that's as long as it goes. Let's just put it somewhere in the middle, shall we? Okay, so I've got this first one running, and this enables me to go back to the beginning of the timeline. This enables me to play the timeline. Here's what I'm going to do. Now, record cues is what I want. Now, with it set to record, what I need to do is click on this, and that's the first slide. It puts a little piece right here. And here I can go in here, and I could call this, let's see, Mighty, just so that it's easy to see. And close that. Yeah, it shows up, but it's not really easy to make out in this view. Now if I stretch that out, still doesn't quite do it. So all that to say, there we have slide 1, and that's set up. Now, if I had a little introduction, I could absolutely just drag this bad boy down further on the timeline. So if I wanted to start in black with no background or anything running, or let's say with a background and then this foreground comes up a little later, I can do that. I just happen to know that this particular MP3 starts right in on it. There's no introduction or anything. So I'm going to start with slide 1, and watch as I do this. I'm going to click play, and I'm listening to it. Is our God a bulwark never failing? Okay, now I click on our helper, he amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing. and I can pause that. And actually, I was a little fast on this, so I'm going to drag this down just a little bit so that it comes in a little bit later. So, oops, I want to delete that. So if I go back to the beginning, I can play it again. And you'll see when it gets to this slide right here, it will auto advance to our helper. So there we go. That's really the basic gist of it. And I'm going to pause that right before I would add the next slide. And I can still add the slide because it's still recording. And if I start this, I would see this change. If I go back and I click on this slide and the timeline, okay, so that didn't exactly update as I expected it to. This isn't a feature I use a lot, but you get the general gist of that. Now, and it's going to change. Of course, we didn't see this here because it was already on this one active. So I can just continue on with that. Now, one thing that I'm not quite sure what it does, so we're going to actually do a little experimentation here live, and I'm going to tweak the rate. So modify playback rate. So I'm thinking that if you think the MP3 is a little slow, you can actually make it faster, and that's also going to tweak the... So I'm just to make this work, I'm going to speed that up to 2x, and we're going to see if that affects everything, and we go from there. So let's go back and start playing. Huh. That didn't seem to affect it, but let me go back to 1x. Maybe, no. So I really don't know what that does, because at least in the version that I'm playing with, it didn't really seem to affect it. I did want to show you that the entire duration here is 158 seconds on this, so that can tell you a little bit, if you know you're 13 seconds in, where you are in the entire duration of that MP3. I'm curious, if I open up where is it? Audio. So I'm going to hop back here at the beginning. Nope. The audio bin is unaffected by this, so that's interesting to me. So let me shut down the audio bin so that we have full use of all our real estate here. Now I'm wondering if I shut down this timeline. Nope, it doesn't give me playback controls. So if I start this, no, nothing. So you do have to have this timeline window open to actually start it. So once you're done modifying this and everything, make sure you unclick the record, go back to the beginning, and for each song just hit play timeline. And it'll change without you doing anything. So I'll put my mouse over there. So that's the basics. Now, I'm thinking that there are some advanced things that we can do with this, and maybe I'll do a future screencast on that, where we use this feature in order to make a slideshow that that basically is an announcement loop with background music. So I think that might be a way to go. We'll see if I can do that. I'm thinking, so if let's just try an experiment, shall we? So let me save, and let's add a slideshow down here. Not a new slideshow, a new song in the playlist. So I've got A Mighty Fortress Is Our God, and then I've got Always Been You. So what I want to do is I want to disable everything. Let me command click down here, and I'm going to disable everything remaining in this playlist. Okay, right click on that. Disable slides. Now I'm going to right click on Earth Is Not His Equal and go to add a go to next timer, and let's call this 5 seconds, whatever it's going to be. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to click save. Okay, so I've got slides 1, 2, and 3 up here. Let's just real quick add add a slide 4 and a slide 5. So let's go back there. Let's start recording this again, which is a pretty nifty feature that you can start and stop recording. See here. I think that's Did We, yeah, it's a slide for Did We in Our Own Strength Confide. Okay. Okay, now for still. Okay, that's right. Okay, now His Craft and Power. So I added that in. Okay, On Earth Is Not His Equal. Okay, let's remove that. So let's assume that this MP3 had actually stopped at that point. And let's see what would happen. Let's see if this go to next timer does what I hope it will do, because if this does it, then we can have some fun here. So if this go to next timer affects this slide and takes it to this next song in the playlist, here, let's see here. So if it goes to the next song in the playlist down here, then we can do some fun stuff with announcement slides and automating those. So let's go here. So I'm playing this. I'm not touching the keyboard whatsoever. I'm not touching the mouse. You'll see that the mouse, actually, let me move that off so you can see that I'm not clicking on anything. And if you look over here, you'll see that that's what's on the screen right now. Again, I've got no background because this is some pretty heavy lifting. I'm actually recording at like 12 frames a second on this MacBook Pro, so it's not a recent MacBook Pro. It's like 3 years old. So we're seeing that the foreground is changing, and I'm on the third to last slide in here. And it's advancing. I'm not touching anything, so that's what we want. And let's see if the go to next timer on this actually affects it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, it looks like the go to next timer isn't going to work. I wonder if after the end of the MP3 it will. So let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. So it appears that the go to next timer is superseded by this. A bit of a bummer, but just something for you to consider as you're doing this. I wonder if I can add a new track as well. So can I add in another copy of that? So it looks like I cannot. So this is one MP3 per, which is a bit of a bummer. So let's just make sure. Yeah, when I make that small, it's not the case that I have more than one MP3. I just have the one. So, a little unhappy about that. But again, now you can see that when I've made it small, exactly where all these are, and I can tweak them appropriately. If I happen to know that I jumped the gun, I can click that one and move it down, and I can, I believe, by going into slideshow and remove all, I can start over from scratch. Yes, so I can start over from scratch and go from there. So you're going to want to not do that if you like the way things are. So that's just basically how to create auto-advancing slideshows in ProPresenter 5. I hope that helps you and your church as you're going out and changing eternity. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel here on YouTube, or you can subscribe to the podcast at trinitydigitalmedia.com/subscribe, and that way you'll get new videos every week as they're completed. You can watch the previous episode, go to a next episode, or watch other shows in the churchtechcast.com network family. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford with trinitydigitalmedia.com.